How you all doing, ladies and gentlemen? So, we here today joined by a very special guest who will be able to help us identify PSG's strengths, their weaknesses, maybe some hidden factors that many people are not considering. I've sort of asked this person a few questions to help us out with understanding the strengths and weaknesses of PSG. So I'm going to let that person introduce themselves before we pose some questions to them.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Alex, the Euro expert, European football expert, is probably a more appropriate name. I study these different leagues around Europe and mainly actually Ligue 1 and PSG. I've been following their story for just under 2 years. So I'm probably the best person equipped, I'd like to say, to help you guys at Bayernfantv understand the threat you're under, or maybe non-threat. Might learn a bit more about that in the questions.
So the first question is, now everyone obviously talks about Neymar and Mbappe, who we will get to in a follow-up question. But who else is someone that's noteworthy in this PSG squad? Any big surprises that have emerged this season?
PSG are kind of having a bit of a down season. I mean, this is following their loss yesterday against Lille, or it might be 2 days ago, depending on when this goes out. They were pretty much showing exactly what they like. Early on, they were dominant and they looked really dangerous with Neymar and Mbappe on the field. Then they just started to fall apart. They lost their rhythm, and that's kind of summarised the Poch era. And before him, Tuchel was kind of marred with some issues, which we'll get into in a bit. So it's hard to say which players have been surprises or emerged. But I guess the main one is Moise Kean. Moise Kean has been electric this season. He really proved his doubters wrong. He's got over 11 goals in Ligue 1. And I could go into his shots per game and things like that. But what's really interesting about Moise Kean is that he doesn't look like a youngster. He's actually really important for PSG on the pitch, especially when he's fielded wide. He's really strong and he's good at holding players off. There was a good battle yesterday at Lille between him and Sven Botman. So depending on where he's positioned, even if he's on the right, Alphonso Davies probably will have a tough time. And I actually think he'd be a really good match for David Alaba. So Keane is probably someone to look out for. And another one is Keylor Navas. Navas has obviously been a great goalkeeper for a few years now, but he's taken it to a new level. And this season, I believe he saved 79% of the shots he's faced. And he saved PSG quite a few goals in XG, if you're willing to look into those sort of numbers. So they're going to be very hard to break down this game, or these two legs. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. But those are the two players I would highlight from a PSG perspective.
So the next question we have is, there have been a few changes since the Champions League final, with both Thiago's moving to Liverpool and Chelsea respectively. Is the current PSG team better than it was in a final last season? And how have you managed to replace, quote-unquote, replace Thiago Silva in the heart of your defence?
The way PSG have quote-unquote replaced Thiago Silva is an interesting one, and it's a good point to bring up, because Thiago Silva effectively has been replaced well. What's happened is Marquinhos has dropped out of midfield and replaced him in defence. And Marquinhos, despite his slightly more error-prone fashion this season, has been a magnificent defender for the past couple of years, especially since Tuchel's really developed him well. So in defence, PSG have replaced him well, but in midfield, and not so much, because with Marquinhos dropping back, it's left midfield a bit kind of missing a leader and an organiser. And that's why at times you see PSG a little disorganised. Now, Marco Verratti is an extremely talented midfielder, but he's so inconsistently out of the team. And Idrissa Gueye has been a great midfielder for a couple of years, great defensive midfielder, but he's beginning to slow down, especially in his tackle interception numbers. So PSG have definitely been weakened by Thiago Silva. They've not really replaced him. I think Bayern have actually dealt a little better with the missing of Thiago than PSG have with the missing of Thiago Silva.
So it's been announced that Verratti has contracted COVID. How big a blow will that be to PSG's midfield, and who can replace him?
Now, on paper, PSG are very ill-prepared now, because that's Leandro Paredes out, that's Marco Verratti out, and that basically means they're going to have to play a midfield of probably Idrissa Gueye and Ander Herrera. Not great, but it's something PSG are actually quite used to, especially based off this season. In the first 10 games of Ligue 1, they had an abnormal amount of absences. Following the Champions League final, Neymar and a couple others contracted COVID-19. Then players like Neymar, Kazawa, were suspended. Juan Bernat, really good left back, was out for basically the entire season. He's only coming back later in April and possibly even early May, so he'll probably miss both of these legs. I think, in fact, PSG in the first 10 games of the season, collectively, there were about, I think, between 30 and 40 games missed around that. It was crazy, double any other team in Liga, and I think across Europe. So even though on paper they are going to be missing Paredes and Verratti, I kind of trust PSG to deal with it in the way they have managed to slowly deal with it more as the season's gone on.
Neymar's had a strange season this season, with his injury, and then his ban, and then his injuries again, and then the manager changing, and now his injuries again. How confident are you that he'll perform in this game? Do the many injuries hamper him, or does he just get back right where he left off?
That's a really interesting point, mate, because usually Neymar does slot straight back in and perform. And I actually recorded these answers before the Lille game, and I was suspecting that Neymar probably wouldn't come back strongly because in the last 2.5 months to 3 months of 2021, he has played 45 minutes worth of football, and that's a big lack of game time, something that he's not really faced off before. Of course, he's had his injuries and absences, but he's never been out of the game this long. Besides, funnily enough, last season for the Champions League, Ligue 1 was suspended in mid-March, and PSG went over 3 months without playing football, which is an extremely long amount of time. Obviously, 3 months doesn't sound long, but it was near enough double what they usually miss, I believe, in terms of games. So the Neymar, based off that Champions League at least as well, he came back okay, but he was missing his chances. He wasn't quite on it. And against Lille at the weekend, yesterday for me, it kind of showed again. He was okay. He was winning his fouls. He was doing his Neymar things, especially getting sent off for an abnormal reason. But all of his shots were going over, and it just felt like it was missing a spark. And I think Bayern will actually be okay against Neymar because I don't think he's going to have that much of an impact on this game, despite his definite will. He wants to perform in this game. He wants PSG to go through. I don't think he's going to be able to have the impact that someone like Kylian Mbappe will have, which brings us on to the next question, I believe.
So Mbappe is, of course, one of the hottest prospects in world football. How important is he to PSG compared to Neymar? And how confident are you that he'll perform in this game? As a follow-up question, do you think he'll remain at PSG in the long run?
What Mbappe's really good at, basically, is getting the ball and driving straight at defence without sacrificing possession. He's really good at keeping hold of the ball, and he's brilliant at leaving defenders in his wake, which is going to be interesting to see against Bayern Munich because obviously their high line's been exposed a couple of times this season, notably against Leipzig when Neuer came out and Kunku took it round him. So perhaps we'll see Bayern get exposed in that manner. But one thing I do want to say before I move on about Mbappe's future is that there are other key threats in this PSG team. Putting Neymar aside, Di Maria's been great this season, 8 assists, and maybe on the break he's less effective, but from a dead ball situation, as a PSG watcher myself, I wouldn't put many other people in world football ahead of him for a corner, a free kick. So you've got Di Maria causing a threat. You've also got Mauro Icardi, who hasn't quite hit his form. He hasn't scored in the Champions League or assisted, but he's still a deadly finisher on his day. And Moise Kean, I actually think, is a really dangerous threat got for Bayern Munich, as I've touched on. Really strong, powerful, and most of the stuff he's hitting this season is turning into goals. Mbappe's future, though, I think he'll stay at PSG for at least one more season. And all the correct rumblings from PSG's perspective are coming out in the rumours. Consistently, it's been looking like he's going to sign a new contract, and it's just been figuring out the details and things like that. Obviously, nothing's confirmed yet. And who knows, Real Madrid might swoop in and magic the money somehow and get Mbappe. But it's something I don't think will happen, at least until 2022. So I don't think there'll be any Mbappe leaving this summer.
Last but not least, who do you think will win the first and the second leg and go through?
It's a tough question because Chelsea will probably beat Porto. Real Madrid will probably put Liverpool aside. And Manchester City, I think Bayern fans would agree, are going to breeze past Borussia Dortmund. Bayern beat PSG, though, that is a tough game to predict, because I don't think either team is at maximum level. I mean, we touched on it in an earlier question, how both teams are kind of taking a little step back since the final. They're not at full strength. Bayern defensively have been a lot more lapse, but it almost feels like Bayern are still the better version of PSG. Bayern have been error-prone in defence, but PSG have committed 15 errors amongst 15 defensive errors amongst their players in Liga and at least alone throughout their team. So defensively, they're more questionable than Bayern. And then attacking-wise, yes, PSG have got Mbappe, Neymar, Icardi, all these players that we all know the names of. But even though Bayern are going to be missing Robert Lewandowski, they've still got the players to make a difference, like Thomas Müller and players like him. So it's going to be tricky. And I do think that Pochettino's PSG isn't quite at the level to get to a Champions League semi-final. And I think Bayern are going to get past them. But it's definitely a more unpredictable tie. And of course, you've got Kazawa out, Tolisso out still, Douglas Costa, and you've potentially got Danilo Pereira out and Mauro Icardi for PSG. So it does kind of mix the tone of the game a little bit. It's a lot less predictable. But I would say Bayern Munich have got what it takes to get past PSG. And even though a lot of neutrals, I think, are predicting PSG to go through, I think Bayern have actually got it in the bag. So I'd be backing Bayern Munich over these two legs.
Thank you very much to the Euro expert, Alex, for helping us analyze and identify PSG's strengths, weaknesses, and some key areas of their play that we may have to be aware of, or key players that we may have to be aware of. Tomorrow, we will be doing a combined 11 of the PSG and the Bayern team. But if you could all show some love to Alex and follow him on his social medias, which I will have linked in the description down below, as well as have the first comment in the comment section down below, and that would be wonderful. But that's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you everyone for watching, and until next time, have a nice day. Bye.